Okay, moving on to our next presentation from Jacqueline Linke, called An Incipient Moment in Rail Innovation is the Vaccine, Not the Virus. Just a little bit of introduction for Jacqueline before I pass over to her. She's worked in leadership, culture and innovations as a speaker, facilitator and executive coach, consulting to major companies and organisations in the public and private sectors across the Asia-Pacific region. Jacqueline's empowering approach to innovation through developing capability, creativity and leadership and realising individuals' and teams' potential comes from years of coaching and facilitation in the public and private sector. Jacqueline began her career in the performing arts. She graduated from NIDA. Her first job was a principal artist with Opera Australia, and she currently works in the transportation sector. Her creative approach is to bring together the art, observation, stimulations and practices for skills transference and science, theories, technology and well-researched data to enhance and build people, optimising human potential and creating meaningful outcomes for organisations. Welcome, Jacqueline, over to you.
Thank you very much. Without a doubt, there have been extraordinary innovations in rail, as we've heard this morning. And we've also heard a really strong commitment and belief in innovation. And Jared from Willow Rail talked about that what stops us is often ourselves. I'm going to talk to you about how you can build the capability and the mindset to optimize your human potential so that we don't get in the way of innovation, but we start driving it. Innovators in organizations, Innovation in organisations are like viruses the body tries to fight off. And the organisation, either consciously or unconsciously, tries to eliminate these innovators who are seeking the step change to significant progress. But what if they aren't the virus? What if they're the vaccine? What if they are the very dose of thinking that will not just preserve your organisation from obsolescence, but will propel it into the future? COVID-19 has thrust us into a new realm. It's completely shifted our lives, our businesses, our health, and it's forced us into an opportunity to think differently about what we do and how we do it. You could say social media has claimed COVID-19 as the greatest driver of transformation yet. Overnight, we've adapted. We've rapidly moved to remote-based working. We've rapidly increased collaboration. We've rapidly improved our digital literacy. So even the resistant few have managed to seize this opportunity and make a difference. But this is an incipient moment for all industries. This is an incipient moment in rail. We have this incredible wealth of knowledge and expertise within the rail industry, and we have these really impressive, skilled, experienced leaders. If we make our mission to mobilise that knowledge and ignite the collective potential, we stand the very best chance of being the disruptors, not the disrupted. I invite you to think about innovation as the vaccine, not the virus, a life insurance policy for yourselves and your organisation. And I'd like you to think about the key skills that are involved in doing that. We need to look to our past and learn from the past so that we can look to the future and create it anew. So I want to look at why innovation is vital now, what we can learn from the past, and how we can put ourselves and our organisations on the front foot for the future. And beautiful. The technological revolution, as I fumbled with technology, I love this. The technological revolution has really carried us into this global society facing an unprecedented rate of exponential change. And this requires an exponential shift in mindsets. If we look at this trend of human progress over time, it highlights the speed of change that's our current challenge. So no sooner have we grasped the latest iteration of the iPhone than it's obsolete. Progress begets progress. We need to shift the way we think about change, because historically we had a big change and then it settled down and we went back to the status quo. It's different now. It doesn't settle down. It's like white water. We have to keep moving. We have to keep adapting. And we need to adopt a mindset and a culture to capitalize on perpetual change, which will allow our organizations to develop new processes and operating models that support learning and growth with change, not against it. One of the things that I really love the most about innovation is that the philosophy, the process, the mindset, the tools, the capabilities enable a workforce to embrace change, to navigate it with skill, purpose, and excitement. And I really see innovation as the greatest tool for empowering a workforce to thrive in exponential change. If you look at the rate of change we're experiencing and what's predicted for the next 2 years, it's more than 10 times what we experienced in the last 100 years. Change isn't going to wait for us. So we actually need to be proactive in upskilling our mindsets and our capabilities. It's not enough to just say, I believe in innovation and I want it to happen. You have to learn how to do it. And you have to disseminate that through your whole organization. It doesn't belong to a couple of geniuses siloed off, waiting for some singular epiphany. So John F. Kennedy famously stated in 1959 that the word for crisis in Chinese is made up of 2 characters, one representing danger and one representing opportunity. And it's not exactly accurate. The second character, which is in Mandarin and it's difficult to understand, more accurately is defined as an incipient moment. And what that actually means is an emerging nascent state. It's embryonic, but crucially, with action, there's opportunity. So this is counter to what often happens in a crisis where we bunker down and we go, let's just focus on surviving. Let's just get through. We'll just focus on operational excellence and our core business and we'll be okay. We'll come out the other side. But McKinsey & Co surveyed industries during the COVID crisis and found an overwhelming decline in innovation in every industry surveyed, with the sole exception of pharmaceuticals and healthcare. And their findings showed that companies which invested in innovation during a crisis outperformed others by 10% during the crisis and 30% in the post-crisis years. So they're better positioned to recover. So what can we do? How can we learn from the past? Well, I love to bring up history because history offers such brilliant, tangible lessons for us. If we look at the Renaissance, we have historical evidence of what is possible. The Renaissance flourished post a pandemic, the Black Plague. I mean, it did wipe out a lot of people. In Italy, I think they lost 1/3 of their population, but we saw more progress of ideas and thinking across every industry during this time. How might we leverage the circumstances of the pandemic and seize the opportunity to remove the habitual and learned constraints and realize the potential before us and the potential within us? We don't want to be the blocks to our own future. There were more geniuses during the Renaissance than any other era, and it was a time when science and humanities were integrated. They were both deeply regarded, studied and respected, and one mobilizes the other. So if you look at this Venn diagram, the overlapping space, the sweet spot, is where art and science connect, and that's the place of wonder, of unimagined possibilities. This is where innovation happens, and it actually happens in your own minds. It has to happen there first. At the heart of successful innovation is an outcome that adds value to people. Okay, so here's a couple of guys that did pretty well during this time. I know people keep talking about this year as the worst year ever. Sir Isaac Newton, during the Black Plague, had to isolate, and he calls this year his annus mirabilis, which means most wonderful year. And I love that someone's reframed it this way. He came up with 3 amazing things during that time that you may or may not be grateful for. One was calculus, not grateful for. One was he drilled a hole through his shutters of his bedroom window and he held up a prism, and he was able to determine that white light was made of every color. So an incredible discovery. And the other was sitting in isolation, looking out his window, he watched apples fall from his tree and he pondered and theorized about gravity. So extraordinary in ISO, Black Plague. William Shakespeare's another one. So they closed theatres during the plague. So once 30 people a week have died, they won't let the Globe operate. And then they did some regional touring, and then eventually they were forced into isolation. Shakespeare managed to write Antony and Cleopatra, King Lear, Macbeth, and the narrative poem Venus and Adonis during that year. extraordinarily productive. So it wasn't like put everything on hold, we'll wait with our initiatives until it's a better time. These people adapted and they made it an annus mirabilis, a wonderful year. And now this guy you'll know, Leonardo Da Vinci, the figurehead of the Renaissance and one of the most esteemed polymaths. So he was known for his Mona Lisa or the Last Supper paintings, but actually he was a painter, an architect, an inventor, a student of all things scientific. He kept these notebooks, these extraordinary notebooks, and he sketched out designs for solar power, helicopters, bicycles, armored vehicles. And in fact, he had a mechanism for flying based on the wing structure of bats. Quite extraordinary. His concepts in engineering are actually what marked him as one of the most brilliant minds of all time. But see these sketches on this slide here, that's of a bridge he designed, which at the time was considered architecturally impossible. It wasn't built for 499 years. And in 2001, this bridge that he designed was built in Norway using his plans. Do you think sometimes we write things off too quickly as impossibilities? This is a part of our mindset. If we look at the ultimate transportation and where rail might be in 200 years, we need to open our minds to whatever that could possibly look like. I think put your utopias back on the map. Not only is it really important for our progress and social progress, it's important for us as humans to navigate exponential change. When we can see a vision and we strive for it, it gives us hope, and hope is a cornerstone to resilience, and navigating change requires resilience. Nelson Mandela said, things only seem impossible until you've achieved them. So you need to make the impossible possible. And it starts with having a strong vision of utopia. We need to put that back on the map. We understand the world is changing. I think everyone's articulated that today, and we understand we need to do both, innovate and optimize to be able to be a successful business. Think of business optimization as a partner of innovation. One removes the fat and variation, that's optimization, to tighten up the processes, and the other provides the variation, the step change to progress. We need both. An example is Borders Books. If you think of Borders Books on that bottom S curve of optimization, they have this great idea for bookshops. They invest in the bricks and mortar. That's their substantial business. They optimize by expanding and they cover their whole country, and then they go global and cover many countries. And then things are changing, but they decide they'll stay optimizing. And then another little startup, a little, e-commerce business, Amazon, pop in and provide the step change. And borders are gone. So they've become obsolete. If you look at it, the feedback loops are growing tighter, progress is faster, good ideas replicate faster, and progress begets progress. And then competition intensifies, and with it there's an acceleration of both the pace of innovation and the obsolescence. So we all need to improve our game, and we cannot hold the assumption that working hard on business optimization is enough. It's just not. No one ever imagined that the taxi industry would be disrupted by an organization that didn't own a car. No one ever imagined that the hotel industry would be disrupted by a business that didn't own any properties. If you look at all the other disruptions that have taken place, the video industry decimated by Netflix, the CD industry obliterated by Spotify, Apple Music, books and reading taken out by Kindle and e-commerce. What does that mean for rail? Rail hasn't been disrupted yet. We are the dominant player of mass mobility globally. Electric light did not come from the continuous improvement of candles. It came from having the mindset to see that candles weren't perfect. They were not always reliable, and they smoked and they could burn the house down. It came from the mindset that saw the opportunity when you're experimenting with electricity, you can produce light. It's the innovative mindset that produces the step change to progress. And obviously we need light. We need the candles to operate while we create the light bulb, but we need to create the light bulb. And this collective here is perfectly positioned to create the light bulb for rail. Knowing how to be operationally excellent, at the same time how to innovate, lies at the heart of successful progress. But if we're only focusing on the as is, then we're at risk of becoming a was rather than a will be. We need to bring on the innovators. Now, you know this guy, Thomas Edison. He would basically be sacked today by anyone's standards by his own self-proclaimed failures of approximately 10,000. He wouldn't be employed anywhere. He'd probably get to the 5th failure. He'd be in a performance review and someone would say, it's not good, Edison. We're not happy with your performance, and he'd be gone. We really need to shift our mindset to the way we assess things, away from the binary trap of success and failure and into the iterative growth. Learning and learning and learning and learning is what's going to build progress. And that's in fact what Edison did absolutely brilliantly. So how do we stay in the driver's seat? Innovation is not a mystical ability reserved for a selected few. We are all really innovative, and we're capable of choosing our mindset and mastering our own neuroplasticity. We know we can grow our neural network, and we know that we can start to learn to think differently. The current assumptions that are constraining your thinking right now. So whether you're aware of it or not, your thoughts are coding your cells and coding your brains all the time. Right now, in this moment, the thoughts that are passing through your mind are coding your cells, are writing the programs, and are determining the trajectory for your tomorrow and by association for your organization. So this is a very powerful moment because you can change your thinking and you can change how you code your own computer. I like to think of innovation as being a generative way to manage transformation as opposed to a restorative way. Historically, we'll look at a problem that needs to be improved and we'll try to return it to the status quo, to acceptable results. But with innovation and positive psychology and coaching, they all work very similarly. What we're actually trying to do is reach for the nirvana, create the ideal outcome, and even if you fall from it, you're still going to be above and beyond status quo. It's a completely different mindset. But if we skill our people in the mindset and capabilities to create outcomes that add value, to generate options for possible futures, to think forward, then we're putting our organization on the front foot of change, and we're best positioned to pave the way for the future of rail. As a coach, I'm always really interested in how individuals can be accountable for themselves. And innovation is not unlike coaching in both process and vision. It's about creating outcomes that optimize potential. So there are 3 key things you can focus on that will help you take control of your environment and the context of exponential change to put yourself in the driver's seat. If you build your capability, it actually doesn't matter what happens because you find a way forward. You've got the skills to do it. The pressure to get dealt a great round of cards is minimized by the skill player who knows how to play them. Capability and mindset are everything, and a workforce fueled by motivated mindsets and creative capability will flourish. We need to manifest the mindset, cultivate the capability to innovate, and collaborate with the collective. A really good place to start to connect to your potential is to manifest a mindset for growth. And I'm sure many of you will have seen this before, the growth mindset model. But at a high level, a fixed mindset is a mindset caught in the binary trap of success or failure, good or bad, right or wrong. And many of our organizations have been operating this way for many years. A growth mindset is one where effort and application reap rewards and where learning is the imperative. This is so important for innovation because we need to test and iterate, test and iterate. I always think that if you can get a leader to say to their workforce, what did you learn after any iteration or test, and they try something different and improve on it, then you've got gold. If you're looking at, was it a success or failure, then you're going to miss a great opportunity in what you've invested in that workforce. In terms of cultivating the capability, there are 2 key skills in thinking that make innovation happen, and most of us are really good at one of them. One of them is convergent thinking, and that's the optimal one right way. And the other is divergent thinking, which is the ability to generate options and possibilities, pull together disparate pieces of phenomena, make meaning, truly creative, out-of-the-box thinking. The more subject matter expert you have and the more proficient you become in your profession, the less capable you are. There's a direct correlation and drop-off in your ability to think divergently. So we have to work on it, but we're all capable of it. We can learn to use our minds to leverage both divergent and convergent thinking. You can learn to think creatively, learn to think critically and laterally to find solutions that you never imagined possible, and then you can make them possible. Lateral thinking moves you from a known idea to an unknown idea, and critical thinking assesses it. Divergent thinking mobilizes the experience, the knowledge, the subject matter, of which we have heaps in rail, and convergent thinking crystallizes and prioritizes it. Dr. George Land talks about these two types of thinking as working in opposition. Convergent thinking is like the brakes and divergent thinking is like the accelerator. So if you try to apply them both at the same time, you get a kind of neural warfare, or you stall your car, in other words. So we need to be cognizant of how we're using our brains and how we can build skills in both divergent and convergent thinking to really leverage and optimize our workforce, which is our greatest asset. And once we've honed the skills in that area, we have this opportunity to build the collective, or leverage the collective intelligence. On a commercial level, that's the new currency. It's the value of what an intellectual bank can bring to your business. So unlike the Renaissance, when women were not allowed to participate, today they can. And this is a really great lever for diversity and inclusion, one of the levers to a new Renaissance, a stronger flourishing of ideas and progress. If we work together with a parallel focus of innovation and optimization, we can seize the incipient moment. Most organizations understand to some extent that we need to innovate, and they also understand to some extent we need to have diversity. But diversity actually means diversity of thinking. So not just your token, oh, we've got a woman now, or we've got someone from a cultural difference, but really different thinking where you embrace the diametric opposition of your own thinking. That's when we can start to progress. I would say there are many people who are members of this institute who are listening today who are potentially competitors, but all essentially teammates on the ultimate rail team. You're all working on how we can make rail more viable, more sustainable, more flexible, more efficient globally. Every one of us here are part of that greater team. And there are other players in this team all over the world. Imagine if we actually work together better, what we could create collectively for the future of rail. What would we be capable of with our combined resources and assets and our collective thinking? How might we learn from the past, from our global colleagues, and fast track our own future outcomes? And that is the legacy that you as a collective can leave. If we work together with a parallel focus of optimization and innovation, if we seize the incipient moment, which we are in, if we take action that exploits the opportunity, we consciously build our mindsets and our capability to innovate, then we are fast tracking our next step change and putting in place our vaccine for obsolescence, laying flexible tracks for the future of mobility. In the imputed words of Winston Churchill, never let a good crisis go to waste. Let this be your annus mirabilis. Thank you.
Jacqueline, fantastic. Thank you very much. Like some very thought-provoking ideas in there, and yeah, it is about just getting it done, yeah, fascinating.